After playing the Modern Warfare beta for most of the weekend, I thought I'd share some information on gunsmithing and weapon modding mechanics. The build I'm going over is the M4A1 Hybrid Accuracy, Damage, and Range build, or just M4A1 Hybrid build for short. This build is great for ground war and the 20v20 mode, but also viable at other modes with a more passive playstyle as well. This build is effective at close, medium, and long range, and also has a quick time to kill. Understanding gunsmithing is an important part of Modern Warfare, and hopefully I can shine some light on the topic. The mods all have different buffs and debuffs to stats, as well as pros and cons for movement, ADSing, and other skills like that. On the bottom left you can see the stats of the weapon you're modding. These stats will show what the weapon is proficient with and what skills are lacking. I'm going to quickly go over all of the stats that you see on screen here on the bottom left. The first one we have is accuracy. Accuracy is the spread of your rounds on a target. The higher the accuracy stat, the more shots will land on target while fully automatic. Now, especially with the M4A1, I don't recommend single fire, unless you're playing on ground war at extreme distances. For damage, there are no actual numbers to display how many shots it takes to incapacitate an enemy, but obviously, the higher the damage stat, the less shots it will take to eliminate your threat. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'll be doing an in-depth guide on these stats in-game once the full game releases. Range displays how effective your weapon will be at distance. Like with damage, there are no numbers showing the effective distance, but honestly, the bullet drop is almost non-existent, so the range stat doesn't really make that big of a difference with your build. The difference that it does make is the optic you are using. Also, I will be doing a video on how range affects shot placement in the full game as well. Fire rate is pretty self-explanatory, but for those of you that don't know, it's the time it takes between the first round leaving the barrel to the last round leaving the barrel. The more rounds on target, the quicker the target is eliminated, and in most cases, that's normally how it goes anyway. Although, from what I've seen in other CODs, the faster the fire rate, the more recoil is shown on your weapon. Unfortunately, from the ARs, I haven't seen any mods that increase the fire rate unless I've been looking in the wrong place. I'd like it to stay this way only because it's realistic. You can't really change the fire rate of a weapon with mods. Even though it's a COD game, I'd like to see them keep this part at least a bit realistic. Obviously, the reason it's shown on the chart is it basically just displays how fast the weapon fires at base speeds, or stock speeds. For mobility, as far as I know, mobility is the time from sprinting, running, to ADS, and also movement speed while ADSing. I don't believe it has anything to do with running speed, but it might. Control basically shows the amount of steady shot placement. For example, if you put a short barrel on your M4, expect your weapon to be harder to control when in longer range firefights. If you're building your weapon for close range engagements, it's not going to be as effective in longer range. It seems pretty simple in theory and in real life, but as far as the game goes, I honestly couldn't tell that much of a difference. The main things I focused on was accuracy, damage, and range. Even though the range stat takes a bit of a hit, it's still technically considered good for range encounters, mostly because of the optic. Regardless, the weapon has very little recoil anyway, so the range stat debuff there isn't really going to make a difference at all. Moving on to the attachments now. For the muzzle, I use the muzzle brake for recoil control. The suppressor is fine too for suppression, in games where you want to be more stealth or concealed, but expect damage fall off at range. I don't know how much range. I'm going to be doing a video on this in the future. A breacher device isn't really worth it unless you're constantly up close with the enemy and you like to melee a lot. I haven't meleeed that much at all in the beta. I just don't feel like doing it, and I think it's really not a priority. The flash guard attachment helps with concealing your muzzle flashes, but reduces ADS, which honestly doesn't seem good at all, so I'd avoid this. For the barrel, I chose the lightweight barrel for damage, range, and bullet velocity, which doesn't have anything to do with fire rate, by the way. Velocity is just the speed at which the round travels. In theory, the round hits the target quicker with less drop time. The short barrel doesn't work for this build at all because it's more for the CQB build. You lose bullet velocity and recoil control, which is no good for this. The heavy duty barrel is another good option, and I honestly couldn't tell which one I thought would be better. It has a bit more accuracy over the lightweight barrel, but I like the way the lightweight barrel looks over the heavy duty barrel, so I chose chose that one. Either option works, but just avoid the short barrel for this one because it's more for CQB. Now for the laser attachments seem pretty much useless for me. It works for some weapons, but for the rifles it definitely seems to lack while point firing rather than just ADSing. Which, it's always been like that for COD games for me. I think the MP5 and MP7 works great with a laser, but I honestly see no reason to point shoot because of the huge drawback to the accuracy and shot placement. In my honest opinion, I think they should make point shooting more viable and just remove the crosshair on your HUD completely. There's no reason why bullet spread should be so high when I'm 5 feet from an enemy. As far as the difference between the 1 milliwatt laser and the 5 milliwatt laser goes, is that the 1 milliwatt laser doesn't show up for enemies while the 5 milliwatt laser does. You get a slightly more point shooting accuracy with the 5 milliwatt laser at the cost of concealment. I'd personally avoid lasers unless you're just trying to look cool. It's a huge disadvantage to point shooting your enemies unless they are right in your face. Now for the optic, in the video I'm using the 4x hybrid because I wanted to try it out. But I like the look of the integral hybrid or hammer scope from Escape from Tarkov, as some of you might know, as I like the reticle a lot better for both the scope and the dot optic. The 4x hybrid, however, does offer a bit more stats than the integral optic. The 4x hybrid has an ADS speed increase with the loss of zoom level and sway control, while the integral only has a debuff in ADS and sway, but retains the zoom level. So the zoom level is a lot better than the 4x hybrid. Both viable options, but I enjoy using the integral over the 4x. As far as the stock goes, I avoided the stocks for this build mostly because the pros and cons were not worth the cost of another attachment. With the heavy stock, you gain sway control and gun steadiness, which can help a bit at long range, but you lose movement speed. The lightweight stock offers movement speed while aiming, but with the loss of sway control and gun steadiness. Neither of these seem worth it to me, but I would avoid using the lightweight and use the heavy stock instead if you're going to choose a stock. For the underbarrel, I chose the tactical grip due to the horizontal recoil control stat as well as the sway control stat. This is a better choice over the angled foregrip because the angled only offers recoil control. Either of these would work good for the build though. Avoid the vertical foregrip as it only aids in vertical recoil and it's better for CQB combat. So I'd go with the angled or tactical grip for this one. As far as using an extended magazine, it's viable if you want to replace the perk or maybe even the barrel for extra ammo, but you get the con of ADS speed as well as movement speed, which affects your mobility and control. Plus, whatever you end up replacing, you also get those stat losses as well. Also, you'll notice that the fire rate goes up slightly, and the only reason it does this is because you have more ammo in the magazine. It actually has nothing to do with how fast the rounds are coming out of the barrel, if that makes sense. Extended mags are not that worth it. I just go with sleight of hand if you're worried about reloading or if you don't have a sidearm. For the rear grip, in the beta you only have the option of one other pistol grip, which is the stippled pistol grip, which offers ADS speed and sprint to fire speed with the con of sway control. Honestly, good for CQB encounters, but wouldn't work too good with what we are going for, so I would completely ignore the pistol grip. For the perk, I went ahead and went with FMJ. You eliminate opponents in about 1 to 2 bullets less depending on the shot placement. Also, it helps for long range encounters because every round counts. Sleight of hand is also a viable option for the quicker reload time under pressure, but unless you're in CQB a lot, it's not worth it compared to FMJ. Heavy hitter isn't worth it at all for this build. All it offers is stun on melee, which all stun does is make it so your target can't ADS for a second or two. For stance training, I haven't tried this out yet, but it increases accuracy in the prone or crouch position. This actually would be good for this build, but it's definitely not worth it over FMJ. Unless you find yourself crouched or prone a lot, I would avoid this one. For the perk Frangible Wounding, all this does is inflict a wounding effect that supposedly makes it so your target can't fully heal for a limited amount of time. For the fully loaded perk, all this perk does is give you maximum reserve ammo when you spawn. If you're using resupply as a field enhancement, I wouldn't bother with this. Honestly, overall, none of these perks are really viable for the build besides FMJ or sleight of hand, and maybe stance training, but I don't encourage camping in a corner all game, so I wouldn't go with that one. So we've got the muzzle brake, lightweight barrel, no laser, the integral hybrid optic, no stock, although the heavy stock works if you want to try it out, tactical grip, no extended mag, but it is viable if you want to try it, no rear grip, and the FMJ perk. If anyone has any suggestions for this build or anything else to add, let me know in the comments. Also, don't be afraid to add your own build suggestions as well. Thank you guys for watching the video. Enjoy the rest of the gameplay. Oh my god, how'd you get up here, Eric? Eric, what the fuck? What'd you do?
I spawned on someone and I'm up here now.
Kill those people on the bridge. There's a whole bunch of them. Oh my god, I just got a quad kill. No!
I got one on the bridge.
I know, there's a whole fucking battalion.
Your whole fucking, the whole enemy team just fucking ran by your ass, dude.
What am I? What is going on? How'd you get in here?
I don't know.
What?
Oh, we're stuck.
Okay, whatever you do, Devin, don't fucking spawn on us.
You should spawn.
Throw a grenade or put a claymore down and shoot it together.
Can we kill people from here?
Does the Blackhawk or does the Huey have a machine gun? Is the helicopter armed? Doesn't look like it.
Alright, I'm out. I'm